It started subtly, just another glitch in the digital fabric of my life. My phone, my constant companion, began ringing at precisely 3:11 a.m. every single night. The first time it happened, I jolted awake, heart hammering against my ribs, fumbling for the device on my nightstand. The screen glowed with two words that always send a little chill down your spine. Unknown caller. I swiped to answer, my voice thick with sleep. Hello. Silence. Or not quite silence. Tay. There was a faint hum, a static whisper that I couldn't quite place. I hung up, chalked it up to a wrong number, and fell back asleep. The second night, it happened again. 3:11 a.m. Unknown caller. This time, I was more annoyed than scared. Who is this? I demanded. Get that strange hum. But as I listened closer, a cold dread began to seep into my bones. The whisper wasn't static. It was a voice that sounded eerily, impossibly, like my own. It was saying something, a fragmented sentence that I'd said to my coworker just that afternoon. So the deadline is Friday, no exceptions. I dropped the phone as if it were on fire. It couldn't be. A recording, a prank, but who would go to such lengths? The third night, I was waiting. I watched the clock tick past 3:10. My breath hitched. As the numbers flipped to 3:11, my screen lit up. I let it ring, the sound grating on my nerves. It rang for what felt like an eternity before finally going to voicemail. A moment later, a notification popped up. A new voicemail. With trembling hands, I played it. My own voice, whispering again, a snippet from a phone call with my mum earlier that day. Love you too. Talk soon. The audio was faint, distorted, like it was recorded from a great distance, yet the words were crystal clear. This was no prank. This was something else entirely. I started a series of desperate experiments. The next night, I turned my phone completely off, powered it down. At 3:11 a.m., the screen flickered to life and the phone started ringing. It was impossible, a violation of the very laws of technology. The night after that, I put it on silent mode. At 3:11, my screen lit up with the incoming call. The night after that, I took the SIM card out. 3:11 a.m. ring. Ring, ring. It was as if the call wasn't coming to the phone, but from it, desperation led to more extreme measures. I left the phone in my car, parked down the street. I went to bed, bundling the blankets around my ears, trying to create a cocoon of silence. But I couldn't sleep. I just stared at the ceiling until, faintly, I heard it. The muffled, distant vibration of my phone's ringtone, carrying on the night air from the street below. It knew. It always knew. The calls were no longer just recordings of my day. They were evolving. The disembodied whispers started stringing together phrases from different conversations, creating nonsensical, yet deeply unsettling sentences. The deadline is Friday, ... love you too. Right outside. My life began to unravel. I was perpetually exhausted, dark circles etched under my eyes. I became paranoid, scrutinizing every word I spoke during the day, wondering which snippet would be played back to me in the dead of night. I started talking less, avoiding calls, isolating myself. My friends and family grew concerned, but how could I explain it? That my own voice was haunting me through my own phone. I sounded insane. I went to the phone company, and they looked at me with pity. No record of any incoming calls at that time. No data usage. Nothing. To them, it wasn't happening. I bought a new phone, a different brand, a new number. I felt a surge of hope, a belief that I could finally break the cycle. That night, I placed the new phone on my nightstand and left the old one, SIM-less and dead, in a locked drawer. I slept more soundly than I had in weeks. But then, at 3:11 a.m., I was ripped from my sleep, not by a ring, but by a vibration. I looked at my brand new phone. Unknown caller. My blood ran cold. I hadn't given this number to anyone. It was a clean slate, I answered, my hands shaking uncontrollably. The whisper was there, my own voice, but this time it was different. It wasn't something I had said. It was something I had thought. I hope this works, it whispered. The exact thought that had been running through my mind as I bought the new phone. That's when I truly understood. This wasn't about the phone. It was about me. The device was just a conduit for something that was latched onto me, something that could hear my words, and now, even my thoughts. The fear was no longer just a nightly visitor. It was my constant companion. I felt like a specimen under a microscope, reprieved by an unseen entity that fed on my daily life, replaying it for me in the most terrifying way possible. Last night was the breaking point. I was a wreck, a hollowed-out version of my former self. I hadn't spoken a single word aloud all day. I communicated only through texts and gestures, a desperate, futile attempt to starve the entity of new material. I sat on the edge of my bed, just staring at the phone, waiting. 3:11 a.m. It rang. I don't know why, but I answered it. Maybe I wanted a confrontation. Maybe I just wanted it to be over. I pressed the phone to my ear. For a long moment, there was only that humming silence. And then, the whisper. My voice, clear and cold, with an edge I'd never heard before. It said 7 words that shattered the last remnants of my sanity, or, my heart stopped. My heart stopped. I froze, every muscle in my body screaming. My apartment was on the 3rd floor. There was no one outside my door. It was a bluff. It had to be. But then I heard it. A sound from the hallway, just beyond my front door. A sound that was both alien and intimately familiar. It was my ringtone. The same custom song I had set months ago. But it wasn't coming from the phone in my hand. It was coming from another phone, a phantom phone, right there in the hallway. My own personal ghost was no longer just on the line. It had arrived. The ringing stopped. And then I heard the slow, deliberate scrape of a key sliding into my lock. Thank you so much for sticking with me through that chilling tale. If you enjoyed this story and want more content that will keep you up at night, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to ring that notification bell so you never miss a new video. Stay safe out there and check your locks. When I first moved into this apartment, I was just happy to have a place of my own. It was old, sure, with creaky floors and the kind of draft that seems to have a mind of its own, but it had character. The last tenant had left a few things behind her: wobbly chair, some old magazines, and a tall, imposing mirror in the bedroom. It was an antique, I guess, with a heavy, ornate frame. But the glass was so thick with dust, you could barely see your reflection. I figured I'd deal with it later. That was my first mistake. The first night, everything was normal. I was exhausted from unpacking, so I fell asleep as soon as my head hit the pillow. But the second night was different. I clicked off the bedside lamp, plunging the room into that familiar, inky city darkness, and that's when I heard it. A sound so faint, I almost missed it. A slow, shallow breath. It was rhythmic, almost human, and it seemed to be coming from the corner where the mirror stood. I told myself it was just the old building settling, or maybe the wind. But the sound was too consistent, too alive. Every night, it was the same. The moment the lights went out, the breathing would start. Inhale, exhale. A soft, raspy whisper in the dark. It started to get to me. I'd lie there, heart pounding in my chest, staring into the darkness, trying to convince myself I was imagining it. I even tried recording it on my phone, but all I got was static. It fell, like a secret only I was privy to, a secret that was slowly driving me mad. I started leaving the hallway light on, but the sliver of light under the door just made the shadows in the room dance. And the breathing was still there, a constant, unsettling presence. After a week of sleepless nights, I couldn't take it anymore. Oh, I decided I didn't want to see the mirror, and I certainly didn't want it seeing me. I grabbed an old bedsheet from the closet, heavy white cotton one, and walked over to it. As I stood in front of it, I felt this strange, cold energy, like standing too close to a block of ice. I quickly, almost frantically draped the sheet over the entire thing, tucking it in around the frame. The room instantly felt a little less hostile. That night, for the first time in a week, there was silence. I finally drifted off into a deep, peaceful sleep. But the peace didn't last. I woke up suddenly, with that gut-wrenching feeling that you're not alone, too. The room was pitch black, but my eyes were wide open, fixed on the corner. The white sheet over the mirror was moving. It wasn't the draft. It was a slow, deliberate shifting, as if something underneath was stretching or turning over in its sleep. The fabric rippled and bulged, a formless shape writhing beneath it. I was paralyzed, my throat tight with a silent scream. I squeezed my eyes shut, praying for morning, for the sun to burn this nightmare away. Somehow, I must have fallen back asleep, or maybe I just passed out from sheer terror. When I woke up, sunlight was streaming through the window. For a moment, I felt a wave of relief. It was just a dream. A really, really bad dream, Faye. But then I sat up and looked at the corner. The sheet was gone. It wasn't on the floor. It wasn't anywhere in the room. It had just vanished. And the mirror? The mirror was no longer dusty. It was clean, unnervingly so. The glass was so clear it looked like a black, gaping hole in the wall. I slowly got out of bed, my feet feeling like lead. I had to know. I crept closer, my own reflection coming into focus. I looked pale, terrified, but it wasn't my reflection that made my blood run cold. On the surface of the glass, there were foggy handprints, dozens of them, of all sizes, smeared and overlapping. And as I leaned in, my breath catching in my throat, I saw the most impossible, horrifying detail. The condensation, the fog, the handprints, they weren't on the outside of the glass. They were on the inside. I didn't pack. I didn't even grab my wallet. I just ran. I ran out of that apartment, and I never, ever looked back. Sometimes, late at night, when it's too quiet, I can still hear it. That faint, shallow breathing. And I wonder what's happening in that room now. Is Samira still there, waiting for the next person to turn off the lights? I don't know, and I don't want to. But I do know one thing. Some doors are better left unopened, and some reflections are better left unseen. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you've ever had a strange or unexplainable experience, I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing for more stories from the shadows. Stay safe out there, and maybe, just maybe, be careful what you bring into your home. In our house, there's a door that's always been locked. It was my little sister's room. She vanished one night years ago, and my parents, they just couldn't bring themselves to face what was left behind. The key disappeared, the door stayed shut, and her memory became a ghost that we never spoke of. We all tried to move on, to build a life around the gaping hole she left behind. But some things refuse to stay buried. It started subtly. A few weeks ago, I was heading to the kitchen for a late-night glass of water when I saw it. A thin, golden line of light, glowing from under her door. It wasn't electric. It was warm, alive, flickering like candlelight. My heart hammered against my ribs. It had to be a trick of the light, a reflection from downstairs. I told myself that, turned around, and went back to bed, pulling the covers up to my chin. But the image of that light was burned into my mind. The next night, it was there again. This time, I crept closer. The old floorboards creaked under my weight, each sound like a gunshot in the silent house. Here, I held my breath, pressing my ear against the cold, painted wood of the door. And then I heard it. A faint, melodic sound from within. It was a hum, a familiar, childish hum. The lullaby she always used to sing to her dolls before she went to sleep. The same tune our mother sang to us. It was her. It was my sister's voice. Stumped back, my mind racing. Was I going crazy? Was grief finally twisting my senses? I didn't tell my parents. How could I? Mom? Dad? I think Lily's ghost is humming in her room. They'd think I'd lost it. They were already so fragile. So I kept it to myself. Night after night, I'd wait until the house was asleep, and I'd go to the door. The light was always there, a silent invitation. 2. The humming was always there, a soft, heartbreaking echo of the past. Sometimes, I'd whisper her name. Lily. The humming would stop for a moment, and the silence that followed was heavier and more terrifying than any sound. Then, after a few heartbeats, the soft melody would start again, as if she was waiting for me. It felt like a game we used to play, a secret just between the two of us. The memory was so vivid, it hurt. Me hiding, her seeking, her giggling from behind a curtain, waiting for me to find her. The fear began to mix with something else, a desperate, aching hope. What if she wasn't gone? What if she was? Waiting. The thought was insane, but it took root in my mind and refused to let go. 2. The locked door wasn't a memorial anymore. It was a barrier. Something I had to get through. I spent days searching for the key. I checked every drawer, every old box in the attic, my parents' jewelry, boxes, anywhere they might have hidden a painful reminder. Nothing. The key was gone, just like her. One evening, I found an old set of lockpicks I'd bought online as a teenager. A stupid, rebellious phase I'd long forgotten. They were tucked away in a dusty box of old comic books. As I held them in my hand, a cold resolve settled over me. I wasn't a kid anymore. I couldn't live with the not knowing, with the ghostly hums and flickering lights torturing me every night. Slow tea. I had to know what was on the other side of that door. That night, the house felt colder than usual. A storm was brewing outside, wind rattling the window panes. It was the perfect cover. I waited until I heard the soft snores from my parents' bedroom down the hall. With trembling hands and a heart that felt like a trapped bird, I knelt in front of her door. The warmed yellow light pulsed beneath it, steady and waiting. The humming was clearer tonight, almost expectant. I slid the first pick into the lock. My hands were slick with sweat. The click of metal on metal was deafening in the quiet hallway. I had no idea what I was doing, just fumbling, guided by half-remembered videos and sheer desperation. Minutes felt like hours. I'd listen, then twist, then listen again. The humming from inside the room continued, a constant, eerie soundtrack to my task. It was as if she knew, as if she was encouraging me. Almost there, the tune seemed to say. Then, a solid, definitive click. The lock turned. For a moment, I just knelt there, frozen. It was open. The barrier was gone. All I had to do was turn the knob. It took a deep, shuddering breath, my hand reaching for the cold brass handle. This was it. I was going to see my sister again. Fear, hope, and love warred inside me. I had to be brave. For her. My fingers closed around the knob. The light under the door vanished. Instantly, the hallway was plunged back into darkness. The humming stopped. The silence that rushed in was absolute, a void that swallowed all sound and hope. My blood ran cold. I hesitated, my hand still on the knob. Maybe I should just lock it again. Forget this ever happened. But I couldn't. I had come too far. Slowly, carefully, I turned the knob and pushed the door open. It swung inward with a low, mournful groan, revealing nothing but perfect, suffocating blackness. There, that flowed out was stale and cold, carrying the scent of dust and something else. Something old and forgotten. I squinted into the dark, my eyes struggling to adjust. "Lily?" I whispered, my voice cracking. "Are you in there?" The silence stretched on. And then, from the deepest part of the darkness, a voice answered. It wasn't the sweet, childish hum I had been hearing. It was a low, raspy whisper that scraped against my soul. It sounded ancient and full of a terrible, patient hunger. "You took too long."